Hi everyone, welcome to Karen. It's me, Karen, from Authentically Me TV, and today I'm just coming to talk to you about uh, something my daughters thought would be good for me to share. Is my coming to the realization that gossip just wasn't for me, and I always share lots of different stories with my kids and I don't know, my parents shared stories with us all the time. So my sisters and I, we love to hear our parents' stories about their lives and what have you. And so I just carried on the same process with our kids and but and what we've learned and what have you and the funny stories, good stories, bad stories, whatever. Our experiences or testimonies or whatever. And so, one of which just happened to be how I was cured from gossiping. Now, I'm not saying that I don't make mistakes and all that stuff. We all do. But I try to be conscious and aware of what I'm doing, what I'm saying, who I'm speaking to, when I'm speaking, what I'm talking about, and that. And as I look through certain things or read magazines or what have you, I realize now that gossip is huge, uh, whether it's between friends or in the news or, I mean, we could just take a look at some celebrities who have passed away and there's still stories being told that have not been confirmed true or false, but people are still perpetuating stories about these people. So I thought, well, hey, why don't I just put my own take on it and what have you? Well, and in the hopes of not only just talking about gossip and how, I tried in making attempts to stop doing it, but also to just so people can get to know a little bit more about me as I go forward and make more videos on YouTube. So anyway, and if you see me pull over here, I have a little notebook. I always, I don't know why I do that. I always have a notebook handy. I know why that sounded like a little Dora the Explorer clause, but anyway. So, a little notebook, a little background information about me. So, as a teenager, well, growing up, my parents gave us a lot of life lessons through their stories of how they experienced what they experienced growing up. And I'm very grateful for that because it spared me a lot of heartache and what have you. Just learning from their stories and things that they experienced as young people kept me from doing a lot of things. But one thing that I realized that I didn't know how to navigate until I was married was the relationship between women, grown women, to be exact, and dealing with women's issues and what have you, and how we interact with one another. That's just one thing that I wasn't able to, that I didn't know. I was very kind of ignorant to that. Just very ignorant to that. Anyway, so it wasn't until after I married, in high school, I'll go back. In high school, most of the time when girls are sharing things, it's things that are funny or whatnot, and you don't really have to. You have to be mindful of what it is you're saying when you're a teenager, whatnot. But most of the time, the things that you're saying aren't like going to be used against you, or what have you. Most of the time, young people share in order to get more information. They can be better friends or what have you. But in the grown-up women's world, a lot of times the more we share, sometimes our information is used against us, and where people want to make up different things about a person, especially if they don't know the person very well or what have you. And that's how I felt that it operated. Um, and before you disagree, let me explain my stance. So, coming from that, where you share openly as a young person in order to get to know other people and what have you, find that you're getting to know their information as well, and you're sharing back and forth, and you become really good friends in high school. College comes along, you're doing the similar thing, And because everybody has their own insecurities and whatnot, we're more forgiving. And so, unless you're sharing some outlandish detail of your life, most of that stuff just stays, most of your information just stays with you primarily. Um, and then into adult life, where I was dealing with younger women, I mean, women my age or sometimes older than myself, or what have you, and you have children and married lives and what have you. That's when it became tricky for me. So, and I had gotten into a habit where, as a young person, I always felt uncomfortable when it was, uh, I don't know, if you ever had a conversation with someone and then next thing you know, you're having that awkward silence moment where no one's really saying anything, and then, here I come to rescue the situation. I just start talking. And I'm going to talk through the awkward silence, whether that means I'm just basically trivial information, and I'm just talking. And sometimes I would talk so much I could hear myself in my head saying to myself, "Stop, stop, don't say anymore." You're just telling too much, you're giving too much information about yourself. Nobody wants to know all of that, or, hold some back, have some privacy or whatnot. But because I did not like awkward silence or silence, I didn't know how to live through that. I didn't know how to, work through that. And also, feeling like you don't have anything to say, and I didn't want the other person to feel uncomfortable, so I would just talk, which is not good either because you're just kind of rambling. Um, and so, and also, not understanding that there's a difference between talking to really good friends and speaking to people who are relatively strangers or acquaintances and you don't know them very well. So you have to be mindful of that as well. I didn't know how to do these things, didn't have those kind of stoppers on. And I will always fall prey to those situations where it's filled with gossip, or people are talking, or they're quote unquote sharing information about someone else in order to help them or what have you, really and truly just putting a lot of their information out there for whatever reason. Um, that's what I felt. And so, but it all culminated for me in one situation where, uh, you know, I just got, okay, so I was just totally, something that I said was totally taken out of context, and I paid the price for it. And I guess beforehand I just wasn't listening to that little whisper in my ear all along saying, just be quiet, don't say anything. But instead I would just talk through situations or what have you, or I would take situations in, things that affected me, and share them with whomever. I wasn't really discriminatory as to who I shared my information with, which I should have learned to show more discretion with that. One day, I did it to the wrong person. I remember there was a situation with a lady that I knew, and she had done something, asked for something or whatnot, even though I felt that, her situation was well, that she was okay, but I chose to help out in that situation and what have you. And but I was still upset about helping out in that situation. I was upset that why don't I know how to say no or what have you. And I have so anyway, but when my husband came home, I talked to him about the situation and told him how much I was affected by it and how it bothered me or what have you. But I didn't stop there. And I have one of my really good and closest friends, and I talked to her, and it should have just been left there, done. But at that time, probably about years ago, I didn't know how to turn the faucet off. The faucet of just talking and sharing and giving out information, not realizing that I too was taking part in gossip, even though I knew the outcome of whatever that situation was. You don't share all that stuff with everybody. So I, a friend called, well, here was my family and I, we lived out on an acre of land. I'm, at that time, I was a stay at home mom raising three children out in the middle of the country. Um, my neighbor had 2 acres of land. We had 1 acre, so we're way back in the boonies with lots of land and hardly any adult conversation. So when my phone rang, of course I was willing to answer it because, you know, I wanted to have some adult conversation, which is another pitfall, by the way. So I answered the phone, and it was another lady that I knew, and I admired her because she was a really good Christian lady and what have you. But once again, I still hadn't learned my lesson of getting through awkward silence and without just rambling or talking or sharing way too much information, whether it be about myself or about anybody else. And so we talked for a little bit about just different things, and then it became quiet on the phone. So instead of just working through the quietness, I just started talking about my frustration that had recently occurred, and I was sharing that, not sharing any names or anything, but the lady apparently, she was just, she let it be known quick, fast, and in a hurry that she was not about gossiping and that I was doing her no favors by trying to share with her any information of anyone else's, and I shouldn't be doing it. And she just gave me the third degree to the point that I wanted to get off the phone. I was so glad we were on the phone and not in person because I had tears rolling down my face, and she began to tell me how ashamed I should be of sharing other people's information. And this went on for about 5 minutes, that she scolded me about sharing information and hurting other people, and I couldn't believe it. I was just totally embarrassed and humiliated and disappointed with myself. And yeah, I mean, when I got off the phone with her, I just was a ball of tears and mush. My friend Judith and I, we always, when we were homeschooling in the early days, we would always talk at 3 o'clock while we were cooking, because school was over by that time. And that day I was talking on the phone, but I couldn't cook because I was still crying. I was so embarrassed and humiliated, and I couldn't understand it. And it was something that my friend told me. And she said, Karen, you have to learn that you cannot confide in everybody. You can't share your information with everybody. And I realized that word confide was so huge. Confide. What does that really mean? Distinguishing between confiding in someone and gossiping. And so I decided at that moment, well, not just at that moment, but just over a period of time, just really, because I'm one of those people who sits and when things happen, I like to think about those things and analyze the reasons behind it and why it happened and the way that it happened, and what could I learn from it. That's just my personality. And I realized that when I deal with people in two ways. I put people in two categories. It's one category is having censored conversation, and then the other category is non-censored conversation. In the censored conversation, I'm normally dealing with people I don't know very well, albeit strangers or acquaintances or what have you. And my conversation is about, basic topics, just everyday, trivial things. And I can only do so much of that because my brain just doesn't work like that. I tend to deal with, I like information, and I like to talk, and so sometimes trivial conversation, I can't do it very, very well for long periods of time, if that makes any sense at all. And then on the other side, the uncensored conversation is talking to those people who I've invested in, who I regard as my closest friends, and with them I'm able to share openly. That means our conversation can go from the trivial to the serious, back to trivial, and what have you. We can share all things. Everything is open. And I, for my uncensored friends, I call them soft places to fall, or the grave. Not the grave where people are dying, but the grave, meaning that whatever is shared with them stays with them. And it's not going any further than them. And when they share information with me, the same thing holds true. Whatever is said to me stays with me, and that's it. And I don't think I've ever we've never, with any of my closest friends, have never had rules of engagement. Basically, when I share this with you, you don't share with anybody else. No, but I think it's just an unspoken request that when one of your dearest and closest friends is sharing something with you, or even just someone in general is sharing and pouring out their intimate details of their lives, take that vow that, hey, they're trusting me with their information. The least I can do is keep it to myself. And so that's one thing that I learned was for that, to keep those two groups separate. And the only time that something happens where they, well, actually, it never happens unless you meet somebody, make a new friend or what have you. And at this, when you get older, that happens on occasion, but not like it does when you're younger. Other than that, until I have a really good trusting relationship with that person, then they stay in one group or the other, really. And I think before you put someone in an uncensored category, you have a really good relationship with them that spanned a couple of, hopefully, months or preferably years, where you have grown to trust and know that person and know their character. And then there were some pitfalls that I tried to avoid. And I still do these things, which sometimes leads people to believe that I am, I keep to myself, or I'm a loner, or, snobby, or what have you. But basically, that's not it. It's basically making sure that whatever situation I allow myself to be in, that I am conscious of what I'm saying and what is being said, and because I don't want to have anything to do with gossip. So, just avoiding those situations where gossip could be an issue or a problem. I try to avoid those like the plague. I really do, because it's unbeknownst to people, it just takes a little piece of your character away. And people gossip for a myriad of reasons, but basically it just boils down to idleness, not having enough to do, jealousy, which is basically just kind of selfishness, because you're thinking about yourself, and and sometimes you want what the other person has, and sometimes you're just comparing yourself to the other person, thinking that, okay, I found some juicy tidbit on the person. Whether you know it to be true or not, you're still sharing someone else's information. And the last one is just foolishness. So it's idleness, foolishness, and basically jealousy. And I even wrote down the definition of gossip, which is casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true. So unless, which means just, what do we always say? Like, mind your business. Basically, just stay in your lane, knowing what's, the best thing to do is just tend to your own business. Everybody has their own things going on or what have you. And I think it's safe to say we all do, and to just kind of stay in our lane. So if I could say how to avoid gossip is, one, have a grave or several graves, people that you can, or soft places to fall, people that you can go to about a situation or information that you have, who are trusted by you and that you can share. And two, speaking well of others. speak well of others. Instead of finding the negative about people, always look for the positive. And I think it always comes back to you as well. Three, avoid women who engage in gossip. I mean, that's just it in a nutshell. If you know that you know, somebody likes to talk and chit chat about other people, just don't be in their company. Make that a choice that I'm just not going to be in their company. Two, never name names when you're talking. If you're sharing, you just don't do it. Um, you know, another thing is time. Don't have the time. I mean, most of us are, whether you're mom, students, working at home, working out of the home, what have you, dealing with the children, running children around, or what have you. We've got a lot going on, so I don't really have that kind of time, to spend just kind of idle chit-chatting on the phone most of the time. And if I do have time on the phone, it's mostly reserved for my uncensored uh, friends, soft places to fall, and that way just to talk about the events of the day and maybe share some of those things that are worrying or just some of the fun things out of the day. But those are the people that you engage with on a daily basis, so you're sharing with them. But other than that, I don't really have the time. When you're on the telephone, here's the other way that I avoid it. When people call, sometimes I let it go to voicemail. And that way, before I call them back, I can think in my head, once they've left a message, how I'm going to go about, talking about whatever the issue is or what have you. And then I can reserve a time period so that when I talk to the person and they know, oh, when I call, I say, hi, I have about 10 minutes and I know that you want to discuss this, so I thought we could do that really quickly if that's okay. What are you putting limits on your phone time, which means you can more likely control what's being said, and then you can get off the phone and you feel good about your conversation. And two, and then also when you're talking, make sure that you're doing so consciously and that you're just not engaging in idle conversation all the time, which normally leads to gossip as well. So, and also remember that gossip has consequences. It not only affects the person who's being talked about, but it's also affecting your own character and how people view you, because people won't see you as, they'll see you as the person who's spreading gossip about other people, whether you feel that it's your duty or not. There are people who are being hurt, and also remembering that gossip causes pain, and it can never be taken back. And it's very hard to win back a friend who's been offended. And also, so just as an update to my story, the lady and I was hoping that I would never ever see her again. I was just so embarrassed. But it just so happened that probably about 9 or 10 months after the incident occurred, I actually ran into her on where we were at that time at a store. And I mean, when I first saw her, it was an accident. I just kind of ran into her. I was looking for something and I just ran into her and I was in shock and my heart started beating or whatnot. But it was as if the situation never happened. She gave me a hug and, was telling me about how her life was going at that time. And I was still in shock. So it was kind of like, wow, okay, and but I was very grateful and thankful for the way that she handled this situation and myself, because there was no mention of what happened, previously or what have you. And I was just very grateful for that, and I think she was very gracious. But I learned a lot. After that situation, I took an oath of silence. My silence wasn't like I got the idea from Maya Angelou, but it wasn't where I said nothing, because I had 3 small children, so I had to speak on a daily basis. But what my vow of silence included was to learn to be quiet, meaning that when I was speaking to other people or other people were speaking to me, I would remain quiet. I would not try to interject in their conversation with me or engage in their conversation until they asked a question of me. And it was me just trying to teach myself to be quiet, really, to be quiet and to learn to listen. Because I just sometimes, like many people, I was listening to answer or listening for my opportunity to get my word in edgewise, but not really listening just to listen to what the other person was truly trying to say. And so I just wouldn't say anything at all. And yeah, and I answered telephone calls as necessary. So if it was just for idle chit chat, I normally didn't return phone calls because it wasn't the other person on the other line or the other person who's talking to me. I didn't have a problem with anybody. My problem was with me, learning how to control me and the things that were being said from me, and learning how not to engage in something that is really and truly hurtful to so many people. But anyway, I did the video today because because I was asked to, and I don't know, maybe I was just rambling on for no apparent reason, as my daughter always says. And but then again, maybe it's something that could help somebody else out there to avoid. And I know I wasn't detailed enough, but if you have any other questions about it, or gossip or whatnot, ask me. You feel free to ask me, because I don't mind sharing it all. I just didn't want to be so deep that it seems like, oh, she's never gossiped in her life and she's so perfect. No, I'm saying I have. And but I think because I was so devastated by what happened to me years ago, I never wanted to do it again. I was truly, yeah, hurt by that. But maybe deservedly so. Maybe I needed someone to say, hey, stop doing that. Otherwise, maybe I would never have learned to just stop and stop talking and stop getting into other people's business, and to deal with my own life. And that's how I am now. I'm very reserved, as some people say, and just a private person. And I oftentimes assume that other people want to be that way as well, which makes me look like I'm, kind of aloof or whatnot, but not really. I'm just trying to give other people the chance to live their lives in peace and privacy, rather than be a Budinsky and find out what everybody else is doing. That's really none of my concern, nor will it affect my life in any other way to know what someone else is doing in their own lives. I try to congratulate people and just to be encouraging now. And I kind of find if I don't have something nice to say, I just do what all of our parents have said, just don't say anything at all. And if I'm affected in some negative way, I turn to my soft places to fall, whether it be my husband, or for me, I actually have 4 graves, other than my husband, 4 soft places to fall, people that I can talk to on a regular basis whenever needed, to share details when I'm needing to share. So you all tell me how, if you got anything from me. If not, I was just rambling, but that's okay. I do like to talk, but I like to talk about real stuff. I don't know if that makes sense either. But anyway, hopefully that helps someone. I know it wasn't as detailed. I would like to be more detailed, but I just, finding the right direction to go in with it will be great. Anyway, hi, Maya. Anyway, thanks for watching, you all, and everyone have a great day. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.